All right, kia ora everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Against the Grain. Well, that's what I'm titling it. My little project for the month of Movember. It's coming in a little bit, I think. Only day 2. Just to have a chat with friends and family of the male variety. Just to check in, make sure everyone's going okay this year, and start a little bit of a discussion about things that are maybe a bit tougher or don't come up as per usual. My first guest, a couple of days into the month, we have a friend back from New Zealand who I met through radio, who he's still there. I moved on to come to Australia, but today we are talking to Mr. Aaron Gardiner.
What a great intro.
Oh, thank you.
How are you?
Not bad, you know. Not bad. We received news this week that we are progressing out of our lockdown. I think it was 125 days or something.
Feels almost like longer. Like when I remember hearing the news about you going into lockdown, I thought, geez, that's rough. And it feels like it's been a long time since then.
It definitely has felt like it, especially because we had two waves, I guess you could call them. And, you know, during the first one, everyone was, all right, let's join some Zoom classes. Let's, you know, go for our walks every day, so on and so forth. And the second time around, it was like, well, okay, I can't be bothered doing that. And so
this again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how are you?
Look, it's all good here. Like, you know, we've had our 2 waves, but I guess we were quite lucky that both waves we kind of experienced the same thing. We're like, no, we're going to make this good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we tried to be as social as possible during the COVID lockdown. So we tried to keep things as normal as possible with work. We'd still have Friday drinks over Zoom.
Yeah.
We'd get colleagues together and just talk shit over Zoom on a Friday afternoone over a few beers, which was great.
Yeah.
Still had meetings as normal. And that, I think, made a big difference.
Yeah, I think definitely the interaction with people was important. But before we get too deep into it, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I look after music and operations for a few different stations at New Zealand Media and Entertainment. So NZME, a media company in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually a fairly busy job. So, and it's around a lot of people. We do a lot of things that involve people. So this year's been quite strange because it's really altered the way we do things.
For sure.
And, you know, it's a very social job. And this year we've had to get used to the fact it's not so social anymore.
No, exactly. And you continued working through the whole thing?
Yeah, so we all had to kind of get leave balances down, all that kind of thing to help save the company money. But we had so much work on.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard to take leave because you think, well, I can't go anywhere, so I'll stay at home and keep working.
Yeah, exactly. We pretty much, our work dried up March kind of thing. Being in events, you can't obviously hold events when you can't have people there.
Yeah, funny that, yeah.
But Brady kept working from home, and it was the thing of you wrapped up at 5 o'clock and you swiveled around and you're home. There's no hour commute. There's no, exactly.
No, yeah.
And so to distance yourself from, oh, I'll just check one more email, or I'll just log on to do this one thing because your work was 2 meters away from you.
Well, I think, yeah, that was kind of the struggle because you had emails come through. Hey, look, sorry, I know it's 6 p.m. on a Friday, but this.
Yeah.
Can you help?
Yeah. I know you're at home. I know you're not doing anything else.
Sorry, I'm just at the pub.
No,
I'm really not actually.
No,
Give me a sec, you know. And that made it really hard because there was no off switch.
Yeah.
You couldn't say, sorry, I'm at the farmer's market, I'll be home in 2 hours, or sorry, I'm out of town for the weekend. So it was really hard to say no.
Exactly. And I guess the work you do is pretty around the clock anyway.
Normally, yeah. But occasionally you can get away with, I'll sort it out tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can't right now. But during lockdown, well, what's your excuse?
Yeah, exactly. And it was weird for us because Brady's doing her PhD, so that continued on through. The university went down to smaller capacity, but she still had work. You still got to write your thesis.
Yeah.
and then I'm sitting on the other side not working. And so it was that two things of like, she would come home at the end of the day having done a full day of work, and I'm like, oh, someone's home, I can talk. And it's like, oh no, this dynamic doesn't quite work. And it was fine. There was no problems, but it was just kind of having no one to talk to all day, and then you don't have that work interaction of, oh, how's your weekend? Oh, oh, it's Monday. What are you looking forward to this week? Kind of thing. It was kind of like, I guess I'll sit around home, and you have weeks where you try and be productive. All right, I'll make a schedule. I'll go for walks every day. I'll get up. I'll make breakfast. But then you're like, well, why am I doing that?
Why though?
Yeah. So it was a tricky thing to navigate, but I think all in all, it was definitely made you aware of how small the apartment is.
Yeah. Well, I found the same actually, because my partner, we were both lucky we were working from home, and we conveniently have a place that's big enough. We both have workspaces that don't intrude on each other, which was lucky.
So you can have that space.
Yeah, but I think even then, you're used to having people you talk to, and in radio, we're quite a social bunch.
Of course, yeah.
We crack bad jokes, we share stupid things we've done with each other all the time. And when you find the only person you're working with isn't involved in the same industry as you, hey, so I've just... And?
Yeah.
It's not a thing, I've just come up with a real funny joke, which I think you should... Oh.
Yeah, it doesn't click.
Yeah, it's hard being around different kind of people compared to who you spend, 40, 50 hours a week with every day.
Absolutely, and I've had that discussion with many people at work, probably you at some point when we were working in radio, is that they are a second family. You spend more, if not as much time as with your significant other or your flatmates or your family, whatever your living situation is. You're seeing these people every day, day in, day out, for the majority of the day.
And I think the other hard thing with that too is, because we're such a social bunch, we're quite happy to go and have lunch at the pub on a Friday or whatever. And then you're sitting at home.
Yeah.
I'd normally be at the pub by now.
Yeah, not even that, or even at one point of the lockdowns, because our levels differentiated from
so your lockdown was kind of our level 3 almost.
Correct. I believe our top level 4 was like New Zealand's level 3. But it was changing every day, and there were updates, and you got so sick of seeing it that you're just like, I'm just going to assume that I can't do this list of things.
So what's happened today? Nothing.
Exactly. And during again, like you said, there's the 2 lockdowns, and during the first one, it was like, oh, how many cases are we up to? Okay, we're this far away from getting free, I guess.
Yeah.
And the second one, you're like, look, tell me when I'm allowed outside again, and I'll be...
Oh, 3 new cases. Cool. But when can I not be here?
Exactly. And like you said, like, oh, sure, we'd be out at lunch at this moment or something. It's like, sure, I cooked some meals. I, got passionate about making food at some point, but then... oh, I guess I'll just have noodles for lunch. Or
And I think that was the initial kind of excitement about the first lockdown. We were spending time cooking meals we'd never normally cook, because preparation starts at 4 p.m. And because we live 25 kilometers from town.
Yes.
So spending 4 hours cooking dinner is just unsustainable normally.
Yes. Yeah.
When do you want to eat? Tomorrow?
Well,
yeah, good.
And that's the thing is, again, you swivel around at 5 o'clock and you're home. We were eating at 6 o'clock, 6:30. It was bizarre. The sun was out. It was nice.
And I think that was a nice thing for the first bit, because you start to experiment with recipes going, okay, cool. So if I had this kind of time, I could do this.
Yes.
But then after, like a month, you'd go, well, okay, but...
Yeah. And I think a lot of people fell into the trap, and I think I did as well, of feeling like you had to have achieved something in lockdown.
What did you learn? I learned 7 languages.
Yeah, and it wasn't a holiday.
No.
Because you were constantly checking what the situation is, all that stuff. And sure, I picked up a couple of hobbies, for sure. And that's what I was going to ask you as well, is have you picked up anything this year that you didn't think you'd get into?
Well, not so much during lockdown, but when we were in between our two lockdowns.
Oh, here we go. Off screen for some. It's a performance.
So I hadn't played guitar for all of about 10 years.
Yep.
And a mate of mine dropped one off, so sort of started to pick that up again during lockdown number 2.
Fantastic.
Which was good, but I certainly didn't plan on picking up anything. It was more a chance to do things I'd been meaning to do that I started but never finished.
Absolutely. I think I've ticked off the movie bucket list, the TV series bucket list of all those shows that you're like, oh yeah, I should watch that. Oh, thanks for the suggestion. I actually watched them, and half were good, half were skippable.
So you've run out of Netflix. What's good?
And that's the thing is you end up. What was I going to say? When Brady was working from home, it was quite good because she was getting up at a time, so I'd get up at the same time. And even though I wasn't working, it'd be like, okay, well, we'll both stop for lunch at 12 and then go back to, even if I was playing PlayStation or watching Netflix, it was like, okay, you can't do this all day. You got to stop and then have lunch and then stop.
So a sense of routine, yeah.
A sense of routine definitely helped. But I definitely have started running about 5 times, I think.
Well, I think that was the issue I had was because I'm normally quite productive and I was still getting up at 5:36 in the morning because that's what I normally do. But I was finding without the distractions, I'd finish work by 9:30.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and
okay.
I think that can swing both ways as well because we're lucky enough we've got a space for a desk. So you set up, you put your headphones on, your laptop, or it's where I'm sitting now.
Yeah.
And the couch is over there, so you've got to. You almost don't distract yourself, but you find yourself falling into the, I'll watch one episode before I do this task or something.
I mean, I think I ended up watching about 3 seasons of a show based at a Japanese restaurant.
That sounds interesting.
So there's this show on Netflix where it's based at it's called Midnight Diner.
Okay. I'll add it to my list.
And it's fully in Japanese, so you actually have to pay attention. But
Yep.
I ended up watching so much of it. It's a little diner based in Tokyo, and they have one item on the menu,
Right.
but they'll cook anything for you if they have the ingredients.
Okay.
It was just the stories of these people going to this diner at 2:00 in the morning, and it was actually a really fascinating kind of people watching almost kind of show.
Wow.
But you get through 2 seasons, and you think, why am I watching this?
Yeah.
This is fascinating, but shouldn't I be achieving something right now?
Yeah, and you also fall into we watch a movie and there's an airport scene, and you're like, there's too many people. There's too many people on screen.
Social distance.
Yeah.
Get away. Yeah.
No, it's definitely noticing those things. Even now, since we've eased up, we went out the other day for an appointment, and you were just hyper aware of how many people were around you.
Yeah, I think we certainly had that when we first went to level 3, then level 2, then level 1 here. It's like,
Of course, because Auckland was a slower progression down, wasn't it?
the second time around, yes. The first time it was equal, but then naturally being our biggest city, it was going to get hit again at some point.
Of course.
There's people
Yeah.
here. And yeah, the second time around, it was kind of we were level 2, but I could jump on a plane and fly somewhere that was level 1.
Yes, yeah.
And that was a strange sensation. You know,
Yeah.
when I first, flew out of town, I arrived, it was like COVID hadn't happened.
Right, and they were just all acting as normal.
Yeah, because in a place like Greymouth, for example,
Mhm.
which is where I went to, it's a bloody Auckland virus. So, there was no sign of it being there.
Yeah,
So they just continued life as normal.
right.
And you looked like a bit of a dick because we've got our COVID app, we scan in the QR codes.
Sure.
And in the smaller places that haven't really had it, what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
It's so much of it's just not a thing.
No, exactly. It's a weird thing of if you came from Auckland, you were like, oh, well, you must have the disease.
Yeah. Well, I preferred not to tell them where I came from, to be fair.
Yeah.
But you'd queue up for public transport. Sorry, mate, you've got to wear a mask. There's this bloody COVID thing.
Yeah.
It was just, the mindset was so different. It was actually really bizarre.
That's crazy. No, and especially being in the same country as well.
Like, to me, it's not that far away, but it felt like it was a whole different country. It just felt like it wasn't.
Yeah. So your family is from down south, aren't they?
Well, sort of. That's where Mum lives now. I'm not from there originally, but she lives down there now.
Right, I see.
And that's kind of been the hard thing with COVID, because there've been family health issues and stuff where I've had to go down and support them. And
right.
It's been quite tough with COVID, because you've got to work out travel plans, whether you can travel or not. They've had appointments they've got to get to, and you sort of want to be there for them.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. You have to work out whether you actually can travel or not. And travel plans have to be changed all the time, which has been quite tough.
Yeah. And you've been able to see them though?
Luckily, yes. I've been able to see Mum once before COVID, once since. But even then, it's been quite strange, because when you go down, it sort of feels like it's been 2 years.
Yes. Yeah.
It feels like it's been such a long time, and so much has happened since then.
Yeah.
And you do get that sort of outsider feel that you've come from a place with COVID, but they don't have it, even though Southland has actually had 2 of the major COVID hotspots during the first wave.
Right, yeah.
The Wedding and Bluff and whatever the other thing was.
Yeah.
But even then, they want to make sure that you feel like it's not a virus from there.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is that you want to make sure you're not bringing anything into an existing health issue.
Well, that's the other thing. You've got a flight booked, and you go, well, I've got some, well, I think it's hay fever.
Yeah.
Is it hay fever? Yeah.
Yeah,
and that makes you feel bad.
Yeah, well, we got tested a couple of weeks ago, about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, because we both had the sniffles, we had some of the symptoms, and we're like, well, the right thing to do is to go and get tested. And went there, and by that point, went up your nose and down your throat, but at this point, they're down to 24-hour turnarounds. So by the next day, they were like, you're both negative.
You're fine.
You're fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's good to know. But I couldn't, I wouldn't want to visit people and be like, well, I'm not sure if I'm bringing it or.
Well, I think that was the stigma too. When you got to the period where there was 1 or 2 cases per day, or some days none, you go, well, I've got the sniffles, I've got to get tested. What if I'm the one person who actually has it?
Yes.
New Zealand is COVID free, apart from that guy,
Yeah. And I think that did happen, didn't it? Come down to one family.
Yeah, there were days where it was one family or one case. And you think, I know it's not me, but imagine being that one person who knows it's them.
Yes.
They're the one new case of COVID in the country today.
Yeah. I mean, good on them for getting tested and getting it recognised, but
100%, yeah. But in the back of your mind, you must go, oh, that feels really bad. I know I'm the one person who has it.
Of course. We thankfully haven't had any issues to go home for. But, being, I think Mum said it, that somewhere that Melbourne is always 2 hours away or 3 hours away now feels like the other side of the world.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Because there's just border closures and stuff like that. And even if we were to go home, it'd be go home, 2 weeks in quarantine, spend how long you usually spend in New Zealand, and then come back to Melbourne, 2 weeks in quarantine again. And I think even now they wouldn't let us back. So there's no, without sounding harsh, there's no point us coming back to New Zealand because there's no jobs.
I've got 2 colleagues here who are Australian, and they've got the same issue. They can't go home because getting back to New Zealand, they're not New Zealand citizens. They can't.
It'd be a nightmare.
Oh, I've got a job. One of the people we hired about a month before lockdown is based in Sydney. Right. We employ him. We pay his salary. He's stuck in Sydney. He's not a New Zealand citizen.
Right.
He's not an essential worker, so he can't come over. So he's kind of working remotely and has been since March.
Yeah, and at an awkward in between, I guess.
Yeah. So he's never met his colleagues.
That's bizarre.
He's working for us, but he's never met us.
Yeah, apart from an e-meet or whatever they call it.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent about 20 hours on Zoom with him, but we've never met face to face.
Yeah.
It's a very strange feeling.
Yeah, that's you feel it when you walk outside and everyone's wearing masks, which great. But you haven't seen a human face in months, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's what's not clicking right.
Yeah. I mean, I get weird looks at the best of times with, the way I look. Imagine this. Imagine this with a mask.
Well, before I clean shaved off the beard, it was mask with a little bit of beard coming out, sunglasses, and a cap. It was like, 10 months ago, you'd be asked to leave somewhere if you entered like that.
You couldn't go into a bank. You couldn't.
I believe banks are the one place where you have to remove your mask.
Makes sense. Yeah, just because you never know.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. But no, it's been a really strange kind of adapting situation. And yeah, having colleagues who are from Australia or are in Australia and need to get here, it's very strange. Because even if they have a family member who's unwell, they need to go and see them, they may not be able to come back to their own job they're employed to do.
Yes.
And that must be hard.
Oh yeah, I can imagine there are some cases out there that are just not nice to be in. You kind of look at it as an overall thing, and I think it's not great to compare to other people's situations, but we haven't had anything go wrong that we had to rush home for, and then have to do the 2 weeks quarantine or something like that. And we call home every weekend or every couple of days or whatever, like we usually do anyway.
Yeah.
It's just the fact of not knowing you can go home. If you wanted to, if something happened, it's like, all right, if we flew tonight, it'd still be halfway through November by the time we saw anyone.
See you next month.
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel? Do you miss home?
It's been weird. Yeah, I think to answer it properly, I miss the people. So this year, Mum and Dad have also sold their house.
Right.
Which was obviously not planned for COVID. It was in between lockdowns. They've been thinking about it for a while to move up north of Auckland. And so it hit that the last time we were in New Zealand, which was June 2019, was the last time we were in our house.
Yeah, it's quite weird when you think about it.
And so you go, oh, I didn't get the goodbye period. You know what I mean? Like, because they only decided this year that they were going to...
Because, last time you were there, as far as you knew, that was their home and that was...
Absolutely. Yeah. But again, and people have gone, you okay with that? And that hasn't struck as hard. I think it's just weird knowing that if we flew back right now, I mean, Brady's parents live in Auckland as well, but I wouldn't have a home to go to. So again, it's almost a reason not to jump back.
Certainly the place is no longer home.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been mixed. But I think it's New Zealand news showing what's going on in Melbourne, and then Melbourne news showing what's going on in New Zealand. There's always crossed paths and stuff, so you always get a call being like, are you guys going all right? And it's like, yeah, nothing's changed this week. I think I'm a very big advocate for asking if people are okay, but I think this year it's just kind of like nothing's changed. There's no more conversation to have, especially with someone that you're checking in with every 2 days.
Yeah. No, I'm still as okay as it was on Sunday. Yeah.
And sure, there were times where it was hard, and you'd be like, oh, I really don't want to get out of bed today, and what's the point in going for a walk if we're just going to be here for another 4 months, kind of thing. But all in all, it's been okay. Especially checking in with parents and stuff like that. It's kind of like it's more the fact that there's nothing they can do. Yeah. Talking helps, but it's not like you can send a care package realistic. Firstly, the
Yeah.
post is going to take 9 years to arrive here.
It's 2025 and I've finally received my care package.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think certainly for me, the thing that made it easier was knowing, well, not knowing, but sort of feeling like at least the world was kind of progressing in ways that we'd always dreamed of, but had never needed to do. I feel like people talk about the economic impact of businesses, but a lot of businesses have actually progressed 10 years in a way that they wouldn't have done otherwise, knowing actually, I need to work out how people can buy from me online or do click and collect and all that kind of thing. You go, you know what? You've actually probably saved your business from a catastrophe that could have happened in 2 or 3 years' time.
I think I agree. I think there's two things. There's that businesses have adapted to the online world, and secondly, I think people or employees have gone, working from home sure is a challenge for a lot of people, but also, why do I work 100 hours a week when now I've spent time at home and it's nice at home? I like being here. I like being with my partner. I like, it's like, I think it will definitely change the way people work the 40+ hour week.
And I think also for a lot of office-based kind of businesses, they'll go, why are we renting this expensive space in insert central business district in big town here?
Exactly.
When actually I could rent a smaller office somewhere and have people on a roster where they work from home 2 days a week.
For sure. I think it'll be a lot of change, mostly for good. Mostly for good of being flexible and how people work. And everyone, well, I'd say everyone, 95% of people I imagine can work remotely or in a way that they can go in a couple of times a week or,
just go in for the days where you have drinks and work lunches and
going on Friday afternoons and
pretty much,
and that's it. So how have you been all good this year?
I mean, it's been kind of hard to adjust. Like, I've been good, but there's just been things that happen, when family members get sick and you want to go and spend time with them and you can't. And I think that's been the hardest thing.
For sure.
In terms of a general work-life kind of balance, it's been fine. I still keep in contact with people I see every day.
Yeah.
But it's the people that normally you could jump on a plane and go and see if something went wrong that you couldn't. That was the hardest.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and just even things like mum. So she's never used online banking, that kind of stuff, and having to help her out because she can't pay her rates, power, whatever, because she normally goes into a Kiwi bank and pays her bill there, and that's not an option during a lockdown.
Of course, and have a staff member help or
online banking to her is just
yeah.
So she was lucky enough that she could go into a bank. There was one day a week that a bank branch was open 3 hours, whatever. She could put money into my account. Then I paid her bills, and just stuff like that was kind of stuff I feel sorry more. Like, I feel like we're in a generation we can adapt pretty easily and can deal with it. But I felt bad for the people who couldn't, who'd never used online banking, had never bought things online.
Absolutely. And not only is it adapting to it, but it was like that.
Where you had no choice.
Between February and March, it was, all right, lockdown. All the stores are closed.
Sorry, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing for me. I actually found the hardest wasn't so much for me. It was just knowing that people around me it was putting them in a really hard situation they didn't know how to deal with.
For sure. I think we're very similar in that way, is that we always look out for other people.
I mean, I'm an introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert. I'm not sure which way around it goes, but
one of them.
I have no issue not being around people, but like being around people.
For sure.
So I can work out ways to deal with that. But when people around you don't know how to deal with change, that makes me feel worse.
Exactly. And well, so on that, if you start getting overworked, or I mean, I know it's always a joke, like, oh yeah, I always work so much, but if you're having a rough time, how how do you deal with that? Do you have your own way of dealing with something, or do you talk about it, or?
A bit of both, but I certainly have. I talk to people, but also I found, it's cliche for me, but I found music was really beneficial. I mean,
Sure.
just a bit of music behind me.
Yeah, just one or two albums there.
And that was the nice thing about working from home, is if I was having a shit day, I could just put on an album I liked, and which is something I couldn't do at work.
Yeah. Even if you have your headphones on, someone comes up and taps you on the shoulder.
Sorry, mate. No, you're really busy, but yeah. And I think that was the thing for me, is just knowing that you could talk to someone if it was bothering you, but also you could go, hey, look, I'm at home.
Mm-hmm.
There's no expectation that I'm available 24/7. And if something's bothering me right now, I can just go and put on an album, take half an hour out, chill, relax.
Just a small reset almost.
Yeah. Because I feel like in an office situation, you feel bad having a lunch break.
Yes, you can do.
You're actually
definitely
legally entitled to have a lunch break, but you feel bad disappearing for 45 minutes.
Yeah, or you time yourself and then you go, oh, you know what, I'll cut it short today.
But you never give that time back.
Exactly.
But at home, because you're working in that kind of situation, you could go, you know what? Shuts laptop.
Yeah.
I'm having a break. I'll talk to you soon. And I think
switch off, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But then equally, as I said earlier, the downside was that people would ring you on a Friday night and you go, well, I've got nothing else to do, so I'll help you.
Yeah, exactly. It's finding that balance between the two. But
I think the weekends were the hardest.
Why?
Because normally you'd be able to go out and do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I might as well just work over the weekend, because
I think we had the same thing. Is it got to the weekend? It's not the week's end. There's no end to the week that you're constantly at home, because then you spend the weekend at home.
And that was the thing about taking leave. Why bother?
Right.
Have a week off to spend the same time I spend
at home.
Yeah. It didn't make any difference there. Well, I would have been here if I was working, so why bother taking the time off?
Yeah, exactly.
But the flip side of that, it actually gave you something to hope for. You sort of think, well, I'll save this leave up, and then once we can go somewhere, I can actually use this leave for something good.
I think that's a great idea. It gives you something to look forward to, and we're in lucky enough positions that we are still working, or you're still working through this year. So you're not going anywhere. You're not spending money on a taxi or a lunch or even shopping. I haven't bought new clothes this whole year.
I mean, I was, for entertainment's sake, racing different liquor companies to see which one would arrive first during lockdown, because I had nothing else to do.
Now that's entertainment right there.
So I'll buy some beer from these guys, wine from these guys, and see just which gets here first.
We have definitely had our fair share of different variations of the rules of how Uber drivers, or Uber Eats or pizza or something. Some will leave it by the door and knock. Some will leave it by the door and not knock. And then you open the door and go, oh, I guess my dinner arrived.
It's cold. Yeah, good.
Some will be at the door and you kind of open it and you go, oh, I didn't expect to see a person standing right there. It's been...
I had that, they'd knock on the door, you'd open it, they'd have to hurriedly run away. I'm not meant to be here.
Yeah. Because we're in an apartment building, we have an elevator to our floor, and then there's a corridor out the front. And we'd order some food for dinner, and you'd let them up, because you have to let them up through the intercom thing. But you'd hear the knock on the door, and you'd open the door, and you'd see a bag of food sitting in front of you, and you'd look up, and round the corner from the elevator, this guy is going, hello, cool. And you're just like, yes, I've got it, thank you. But I guess they have to check, because...
Yeah. I'd sort of shout across the street, thanks, mate!
Exactly.
It's a strange feeling, but yeah, it was... I did like that sort of... And I guess that's the New Zealand thing here, no one's really trained to just leave things and go.
Yes.
So they'll always kind of be loitering around... have a good day, in the background, because they just don't want to leave it there. They want to make sure you've got it. And I think that's really nice.
It is. And it's just a little bit of an interaction that you're like, okay, that was a bit weird, but it was still an interaction with not the same people that you have an interaction with every day.
Yeah. And we were quite lucky that all the various, once we moved to level 3 here, which was your kind of lockdown,
Yeah.
once we moved to that and all the local cafes and stuff could do takeaways, the local businesses who knew you would make an effort to personally thank you, so
And that's nice.
we've got a brewery down the road here, Little Creatures, who's based in Australia, but I've got a local branch here.
Right.
And they branched out during level 3. They'd do takeaways, including beers. So you could go and order like a pizza and beers and stuff.
Yeah.
You'd text them your number plate. You'd sit there outside their store and they'd bring it to your car.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And they'd then personally message you on Facebook later, just thanking you for your business. And
That's fantastic.
I was like, that's really nice.
I think a lot of places got very creative in the way they were handling things, which, again, it's probably someone needed something to do. And they're like, come up with a creative way where we can still do business.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading today about, I feel sorry for the UK going into another lockdown, but during the last lockdown, pubs were doing takeaway pints.
Right.
They can't this time, but last time, you'd rock up and they'd just pour your pint into a plastic cup like you get at a house party. And you could sit outside this pub just on the street having this takeaway beer.
Oh, well, that would be an
Which
experience.
I can see why they've said no to this the second time around, but I think, kudos to them for thinking of that.
Exactly. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there, but
Oh, good.
really appreciate you having a chat, and I hope you stay sane, I guess,
Yeah.
through the rest of whatever this year throws at us.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
no, thank you for...
Christmas is coming up, so...
That'll be an interesting time for people, I think.
Yeah.
Very interesting. But no, yeah, I think we'll call it there. And I'm not really sure how to end these things.
Thanks, mate.
That's the
We
one.
got that. A good old thanks, mate.
Yeah. Thanks, and signing off.
No, we're good.
Also, I guess just for the people out there, the reason I'm doing this month is for Movember. So you're lucky. You got in on
I
the
grew
early
this
ones.
yesterday.
Yeah, sure. You got in on the early one, so it looks like you're talking to someone normal. But no, I will leave the link in the description below, all that like and subscribe stuff. But
Donate.
yeah,
Is that what you do? You point down to the link?
yeah. So if you find, my camera's all backwards. So if you point down here, yeah, if you can, give a little money to that. It goes to all these organisations that help with suicide awareness and men's health and stuff like that. So it'd be much appreciated. But no, thanks again for stopping on in.
Good to chat.
Yeah, and stay safe, and we'll catch you later.
Talk soon. See you, mate.
See ya.